Can you imagine this? You accidentally touch this hot kettle. Before you can even think about it, your hands jerks back. No planning, no delay. Your body reacted in a fraction of a second to protect you. What just happened is not a magic. It is nervous coordination in action. Hello scholars, welcome to Olive Academy, where we help you master biology with clarity and confidence. We know we've been talking about homeostasis, the maintenance of constant internal environment in the body of an organism. Do you understand? So today we are diving into nervous coordination, the incredible communication system that lets your brain, spinal cord, and nerves work together so you can sense, think, and respond instantly, okay? So, by the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify the parts of the nervous system. Number 2, understand how neurons transmit signals in the nervous system, and also explain the difference between voluntary and involuntary actions. Okay, so wherever you are in for a ride. Grab your notebooks and let's explore together how your body's fastest messaging network keeps you alive every second of the day. Okay, so let's look at the parts of the nervous system. So this is an illustration. The nervous system is divided into two main parts: the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Then the central nervous system is divided into two: the brain and spinal cord. Then peripheral nervous system is divided into two: autonomic nervous system and somatic nervous system. Then the autonomic nervous system is divided into two: parasympathetic nervous system and sympathetic nervous system. Okay, so we are going to explain it one after the other, starting from the central nervous system. Okay, hope you are following. The central nervous system, okay, from the name center, so it is at the center. It is the command center of the body, and it processes and controls all the activities in your body. Okay, it's at the center, both voluntary and involuntary. Voluntary is the ones you willingly do, like you are moving your hands, you are walking, you are voluntarily doing it. While involuntary is also called reflex action, spontaneous. The ones that you don't even know when you did it, like blinking of eyes, like removing your hand quickly when you mistakenly touch hot water or hot objects. Okay, so that is called the involuntary or spontaneous or reflex actions. Okay, the central nervous system is divided into two main parts: the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, so we are going to look at the brain. So the brain is the most specialized organ of the body. Okay, the brains of nerve cells. Another name for nerve cells is neurons. And brain is also protected by the skull. Okay, so the brain is divided into three parts: the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. Okay, the forebrain consists of olfactory lobe, cerebrum, thalamus, and hypothalamus. So these four things make up the forebrain: olfactory lobes, cerebrum, thalamus, and hypothalamus. Okay, then olfactory lobes, one that is two small structures, okay, in the front, and they make the animal aware of odor. They receive impulses from the olfactory organ. Then the cerebrum is the largest and the most dominant part of the brain. That's the cerebrum, the largest. So if you are asked the largest and the most dominant part of the brain, you know we are talking about cerebrum. Okay, and this cerebrum is the seat of consciousness, intelligence, memory, and the interpreter of sensation and imagination. Okay, then you have the thalamus. Thalamus is above the midbrain. Okay, and the function is that it is also the center for sensation of pains, touch, and anger. Okay, then you have the hypothalamus. It is just below the thalamus. Okay, and is also the main coordinating and control center for the autonomic nervous system. This hypothalamus plays a very important role in homeostasis. Okay, so let's go to the midbrain. The midbrain is a short region consisting of the what? Optic lobes, pineal body, and pituitary gland. So midbrain, from mid, it connects the forebrain to the hindbrain, okay? And it also helps in transmission of impulses. So the last part of the brain, being the hindbrain, it consists of the cerebellum, the pons valori, and the medulla oblongata. I know we are used to hearing medulla oblongata, okay? So medulla oblongata is found in the hindbrain. That's where it is located, okay? It's also, the function of cerebrum is that it helps to receive impulse from semicircular canals of the ear. It also controls balancing of the body. Okay, the pons valori is the blonde band of fibers that connect the lateral cerebral hemisphere. Okay, so the medulla oblongata is located at the posterior end of the brain that continues into the spinal cord. Okay, so medulla oblongata controls involuntary actions such as heartbeats, breathing rates. So these are controlled by medulla oblongata, okay? The spinal cord is made up of a mass of fibers that runs from the medulla oblongata to the tail region, okay? So this spinal cord it sends instructions from the brain to the body and carries sensory information back to the brain, okay? It coordinates all involuntary actions such as sneezing, yawning, blinking of eyes. Now we are done with the central nervous system. Let's move to peripheral nervous system. It consists of the nerves found outside the central nervous system, which are the sensory nerves and the motor nerves, okay? So these peripheral nerves are divided into two: spinal nerves and cranial nerves. Spinal nerves are the ones connected to the spinal cord, while cranial nerves are the ones connected to the brain. Peripheral nervous system is divided into two main divisions, that is somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system. Somatic is made up of 12 pairs of cranial nerves in the head and 31 pairs of spinal nerves. Autonomic nervous system is divided into two: sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. Do you understand? The sympathetic nervous system consists of nerves which connect internal organs to thoracic and lumbar areas of the spinal cord, okay? While the parasympathetic nervous system consists of nerves which connect internal organs to the 10th cranial nerve and the sacral region of the spinal cord, okay? For their functions is opposite, okay? Because during in sympathetic, adrenaline, that is the emergency hormone, is stimulated during the sympathetic, okay? While for parasympathetic, it's the same function but is opposite, as I said, is antagonistic, okay? Neuron or nerve cell is a basic unit of nervous system, okay, which is responsible for transmission of impulses within the body. Do you understand? Okay. The main function of neuron is to transmit impulse. Impulse is the stimulus, it transforms it to impulse. Okay, and there's no physical contact between two successive neurons. The gap between two neurons is called synapse. Okay. Classification of neurons. We have three types of neurons: the sensory neuron, motor neuron, and the intermediate neuron. The sensory neuron, which can also be called afferent neuron, helps to transmit impulse from the sensory cells to the central nervous system, while the motor or afferent neuron transmit impulse away from the central nervous system to the effector organ, that's the muscles and the glands. While intermediate association neuron transmit impulse from the sensory neuron to the motor neuron within the central nervous system. So let's look at the process by which neuron transmits impulses. So this transmission of impulse along a neuron occurs in two phases, that's electrochemical, that's electrical means, and chemical means. The electrical means involve fiber transmission, okay? This fiber transmission occurs in three phases: resting potential, action potential phase, okay? While the chemical transmission involves the neurotransmitter, because there is no physical contact between the two neuron. So there is a space, there's no contact, and that space is called synapse. So when the impulse gets to the end of the neuron, okay, so a chemical that's called acetylcholine is transmitted that will help to carry the impulse from that neuron to the other end of the neuron. Okay, so this chemical substance is called acetylcholine. So it carries it from one end to the other neuron. So the process involved in transmitting impulses is electrochemical, that's electrical and chemical. Okay, I hope you understand it. So let's look at reflex and voluntary actions. Reflex actions, which can also be called automatic or spontaneous action, okay, is a quick response that is not consciously controlled by the brain, okay, so is automatic and it involves minimum number of cells. It terminates at the spinal cord. Example of these actions are blinking of the eye, salivation, withdrawal of hands from hot objects. So the opposite, which is voluntary actions, that is the ones that you are intentional, you know when you are doing it. Okay, so these are actions that are controlled by the brain, okay, and involves many nerve cells. Example is writing, eating, dancing. So let's quickly look at the difference between reflex and voluntary actions. So from what I have explained to you, voluntary, I know you can confidently outline the difference between reflex and voluntary actions. Okay, so let's look at the simple reflex act. That is the nervous pathway of a reflex action. Okay, so the pathway it is. So let's quickly look at the events that occur when a person suddenly and unknowingly touches a hot object. You know, it passes through this path: the sensory cells, sensory neuron, intermediate neuron, motor neuron, effector. You can see it illustrated in this diagram, the way it moves. So let's quickly look at what happens when you touch hot object. The first thing that happens is that the nerve ending of the sense organ, that is the skin, the nerve ending of the skin is stimulated. The impulses are transmitted through the sensory neuron, passing through the dorsal lobe into the spinal cord. Then from the spinal cord, the impulses are relayed into the synapses, into the intermediate neuron, through another synapse to motor neuron. This passes through the ventral lobe to the effector, which brings about a response. Okay, so this impulse carries the muscle of the body, causes the muscle to contract, thereby removing your hand from the painful stimulus and prevent injury to the tissue. So all these things I'm talking about happens within microseconds. Okay, that's why you quickly touch and you remove it quickly. Okay, conditioned reflex. It is a learned behavior after birth. Okay, the behavior learned after birth. It helps individual to acquire new skills through the learning of such habits. You know, and when you master that habit, you find it difficult to stop. Like when you master smoking or drinking or drug taking, you find it difficult to stop. So this conditioned reflex, you know, is a behavior conditioning from experiments by a Russian scientist called Ivan Pavlov. He's the one that discovered about this conditioned reflex, and it is used to train dogs. So let's quickly outline the difference between reflex and conditioned reflex. Okay, so reflex action is an inborn behavior, while conditioned reflex is a learned behavior. Reflex takes a short time, you know, while conditioned reflex takes a longer time. Okay, so reflex action starts by muscle receptor cell, while condition starts in the brain. So the key functions of the nervous system is divided into three parts: the sensory input, the integration, and the motor output. So these are the key functions of the sensory of the nervous system. So in summary, when you talk about nervous coordination, you're talking about how different parts of the body work together to respond to changes inside and outside the environment. Okay, so this nervous system, we have looked at it, made up of the brain, the spinal cord, and then the peripheral nervous system. Okay, and neurons are transmitted by electrical and chemical impulse. Okay, then the reflex and the voluntary action, spontaneous, and the voluntary, automatic. Okay, as you can see, the nervous system works hand in hand with the endocrine system to maintain homeostasis, that is keeping our internal environment stable. Okay, now it is your turn. Comment below with an example of reflex action, maybe something you have experienced. Okay, if this lesson really helped you understand nervous coordination, like, subscribe to Live Academy, and tap the notification bell so you get to know when we upload lessons. Let's keep learning and mastering biology together. Bye.